Hi, I'm in the Nikolaiviertel or the Nicolas Quarter, which is located in the heart of Berlin. Now, this is the oldest quarter in Berlin and has been in existence since 1237 AD. Of course, it was destroyed during the Second World War, but it was promptly rebuilt. The highlight of the Nikolaiviertel is the Nikolai Kirche or the St. Nicholas Church that's right behind me. But did you know that this church has a deep connection with Germany's colonial history? Let's get into it. The Nikolai Kirche, which also functions as a museum, currently has an exhibition called Die Colonial, What Remains, that is going on till September 2025. It highlights the colonial biographies of some of the people who are buried in the Nikolai Kirche, and it also highlights the role of the Brandenburg Prussian kingdom in colonialism and also in enslavement trade. Additionally, the exhibition also highlights how European colonialism is intricately linked with Christianity, especially when one sees how Christianity prevailed over other non monotheistic religious systems present all across so called global south. Christian missionaries were also at the forefront of colonial invasions along with the traders and soldiers before other colonial administrators and settlers would follow. Even though Germany came together as a nation only in 1871 and Germany became a colonial power in 1884 after the Berlin Africa Conference, there was already a German presence in the 17th and 18th centuries on the African continent. Gross Friedrichsburg was one of the most important trading ports that operated from 1683 all the way to 1717 in West Africa in present day Ghana. Constantine von Schnitter was the engineer who oversaw the construction of Gross Friedrichsburg, which would become the most important trading port for the Brandenburgische Afrikanische Company. Its main business, enslavement trade. It's said that in the 30 years of its operation, an estimated 22,000 men, women, and children were abducted from Africa and transported from Gross Friedrichsburg and sold in the Caribbean islands. Mr. von Schnitter is buried here in the Nikolai Kirche. Samuel von Pufendorf was a historian who wrote about the colonial expansion of Brandenburg Prussia in the 1680s, and he justified it citing an international law at the time. On the one hand, he emphasized the natural equality of man and human dignity, but he also believed that slavery was legal in the case of prisoners of war and those who were born into enslavement. This is the burial place of Mr. Samuel von Pufendorf in the Nikolaikirche. Ernst Friedel was the first director of the Stadtmuseum Berlin. He openly wrote and made strong justifications for Germany to become a colonial power 20 years before it actually happened. He would also routinely exhibit objects that were looted from German colonies in the Stadtmuseum Berlin. Now, the exhibition is not just about the biographies of people steeped in German colonial history. It also shines a light on a lot of black resistance fighters from across the world who may not be well known to many Germans. For instance, Jan Kwaw was an Ahanta trader, army officer, and an influential intermediary responsible for the colonial trade between Prussia and West African interior regions. This also helped to prevent British and Dutch from gaining a stronghold in this part of Africa. Now, while German records claim that Kwaw was a loyal follower, it was in fact his skillful diplomacy that made possible the Prussian trade in the region. His army of 15,000 men would also stand up against enslavement trade, and after the Prussians sold Gross Friedrichsburg to the Dutch, Mr. Kwaw would preside over this land for 7 years before the Dutch actually forced him to flee. The Jan Canoe or the John Canoe festival that's celebrated in the Caribbean commemorates Kwaw's resistance. Anton Wilhelm was the first noted philosopher in Germany. He was brought to Germany as an enslaved child, but he rose to study philosophy, law, and medicine. He would challenge the pseudoscientific race theories in the 1700s and also fought for the freedom of enslaved people. A derogatorily named M. Strasser was supposed to be replaced by Anton Wilhelm Amos' name in August 2020, but that has yet to happen. So, for every colonial figure, you also get to learn about an African resistance fighter. Apart from that, in the center of the church, there's also this installation that highlights the brutal history of indigo trade and its connection with German military uniforms. So, if you happen to be in Berlin till September 2025, do consider checking out this exhibition that highlights the connections between the oldest quarter in Berlin and Germany's colonial and slave trade history. Thanks a lot for watching. See you soon.